Before we start today's video, we want to bring you a word from our amazing sponsor, The Ridge. When I'm looking to buy a gift for someone, there's 3 major criteria that I look for. The first is that I want it to be practical because I want the person to use the gift. I also want the gift to match their personality because I want them to know that I got the gift specifically for them. Finally, I want the gift to be unique because I want them to know that they are special to me and they deserve something extraordinary. That's why I think Ridge wallets make for great gifts, because they have all 3 of these qualities. Ridge wallets are sleek and fit into any pocket. Plus, they hold up to 12 cards plus your cash, so you won't be carrying junk anymore. They also come with a lifetime warranty, so this could be the last wallet you ever use. Ridge wallets are available in a bunch of different designs and materials, so you're bound to find the right one for the special person in your life. Finally, no one else in the world makes wallets quite like the Ridge. Not to mention, the Ridge has so much more than wallets, so you should check out their website. And there's never been a better time to check out the Ridge because they are having an amazing Black Friday sale. If you happen to miss the sale, don't worry, they still have an amazing deal for criminally listed viewers. To save 10% and get free worldwide shipping and returns, go to ridge.com/listed and use the promo code LISTED. Once again, go to ridge.com/listed and use the promo code LISTED for 10% off plus free worldwide shipping and returns. Number 3. Kristen Wilson. In 1996, the Wilson family, who lived in Houston, Texas, was having their Thanksgiving dinner on November 27th. Dinner was just about ready, but one family member, 29-year-old Kristen Wilson, had not arrived yet. Her family was a bit concerned, so her parents, Bob and Barbara, drove over to her apartment. They found her car in the parking lot, so they thought perhaps she was just running late. But they thought if she was that late, she would have called. They went to Kristen's apartment door and knocked. No one answered. They decided to try and open the door. It was unlocked. They looked around the apartment, and in the bedroom, they found the partially nude body of their daughter. It was later determined that she had been strangled to death. She may have also been sexually assaulted. The body was positioned in a weird way. Her legs were crossed at her ankles, and her hands were placed in her lap. The police believe that Kristen went out to a grocery store. While she was gone, the killer got into her apartment. He got in by reaching through a cat door in her screen window, and they removed the window frame. Once he was in the apartment, he cut her phone line and unscrewed some light bulbs. He then hid in her bedroom closet and waited for her to get home. The police think that when Kristen returned home, she put some groceries away and then she went to the bedroom to change. That's when she was attacked. It appeared she had been sexually assaulted, but no male DNA was found in the rape kit. Other evidence, like her clothes, the phone cord, and the scissors used to cut the phone cord, were also examined for DNA. But no DNA was found. No fingerprints were found at the crime scene either. The police read Kristen's diary, hoping it would give them a clue as to who might have killed her. The diary passages were from 1993 until she was murdered in 1996. What they found out is that Kristen had a rocky relationship with a boyfriend named Ted. They started living together in 1992 and they were initially happy. But then, things took a turn for the worse. Kristen was frustrated that Ted drank and used sleeping pills. In October 1993, Kristen wrote that she went out of town. When she returned, she wanted Ted to pick her up at the airport, but he couldn't because he was too wasted. They continued to fight over his drinking, and she started feeling trapped. So a year and a half before she was murdered, she broke it off with Ted. The breakup was messy, and Ted stalked her for a bit. About a year before the murder, she started dating another man named Alistair. Alistair was older and wealthy. He was also married. When Alistair learned that Kristen had been murdered, he offered to pay for the funeral expenses. He was also a pallbearer. After the funeral, he paid for a shed to be built for Kristen's father, Bob. People were wondering if he did all these things to cover up for something. The police had a third suspect. It was Kristen's best friend, Sam. The police did not explain why they thought he was a suspect. Shortly after the murder, the police asked Ted, Alistair, and Sam for a sample of their DNA, and they voluntarily gave it. Of course, the police didn't have the killer's DNA. They didn't even find DNA on Kristen's neck where she was strangled, which was odd. Over the years, the evidence from the crime scene has been examined with better technology. Any DNA that has been found on the items does not match any of the three men. In 2014, Kristen's former boyfriend, Ted, died from cancer. The police said that the three men aren't suspects, but they are considered persons of interest. The Thanksgiving murder of Kristen Wilson is considered cold. This year is the 25th anniversary of her murder. Kristen's family and friends still hope that the case will be solved. Number 2, Kimberly Riley and Jeremy Britt-Bayinthavong. In 2002, Joe and Evangeline Britt of Tacoma, Washington were hosting a Thanksgiving get-together for their friends and family. They had about 25 people there that night. Just after 10 p.m., about a dozen of the younger guests were in the basement. They were watching Men in Black 2, and some of them were playing pool. Suddenly, someone started shooting through a basement window. The host's niece and nephew, Harmony and Jeff Spencer, were both shot, but they survived. 19-year-old Kimberly Riley, a University of Washington student who was a friend of the host's, died from her wounds. Joe and Evangeline's 5-year-old grandson, Jeremy Britt-Bayinthavong, was also killed. When the shooting started, Harmony was holding Jeremy because he wasn't feeling well. Neighbors saw a man run from the scene. He got into a Ford pickup truck with a white canopy. It was an older truck from the 1970s or 1980s. Unfortunately, no one got a good look at the shooter. Joe Britt was questioned, and he had no idea why someone would target his home. He was interviewed later, and he said that this was not the first time someone shot at his house. Nearly 3 years earlier, on March 3, 2000, Joe was at home with his wife. At about 8:20 p.m., someone shot at his house. The police are not sure if the two shootings are connected, but they have not ruled it out. After all, what are the odds that the same house was the victim of two random shootings? The police don't know if the Thanksgiving shooting was random or if someone was specifically targeted. Another possibility is that the shooter was trying to send a message to someone in the house by killing someone at random. The investigators have followed up on several leads. They thought the most promising lead would be the pickup truck because it's unique. But that line of investigation did not lead to any suspects. The police are continuing to work on the case, but it's considered cold. Joe and Evangeline Britt have moved away from the house where the deadly shooting happened. They said they used to love Thanksgiving, but they no longer celebrate it. Kimberly Riley's family said that for Thanksgiving, they only have low-key dinners, and they turn down all invites to bigger parties. They are all still hoping that justice will be served in the case. Number 1. The Blount Bombing. In the mid-1980s, the Blount family lived in a mobile home park in Westlake, Texas. 44-year-old Joe Blount was a transmission mechanic, and his wife Susan worked at an insurance agency. They had been married 18 years. They had 2 children together, 15-year-old Angela and 14-year-old Robert. On November 28, 1985, they had Joe's brother, Carl Blount, and Carl's 18-year-old son, Michael Columbus, over for Thanksgiving dinner. Around 5 p.m., Carl left to go home. 4 hours later, Susan decided to go lay down in the bedroom. Joe took his 2 teenage children and his nephew to the local convenience store to get some snacks and beer. While they were gone, someone knocked on the door of the trailer. Susan looked around but didn't see anyone, so she went back to napping. When Joe, Angela, Robert, and Michael got back to the trailer, they found a briefcase on the doorstep. They brought it inside. Angela thought there might be money or jewels in the briefcase, so she opened it. Suddenly, an explosion ripped through the trailer. 44-year-old Joe, 15-year-old Angela, and 18-year-old Michael Columbus were killed instantly. 14-year-old Robert was thrown outside the trailer. He managed to get up and he went to a neighbor's home for help. Susan was sleeping and she didn't hear the explosion. When she woke up, she heard screaming. She got out of the bedroom and saw that her home was on fire. The next thing she remembered was falling into some bushes after the fire department opened the door. Robert and a 25-year-old neighbor were rushed to the hospital. Robert suffered first and second-degree burns on his face, hands, and feet. He was in serious condition, but he ultimately survived. The neighbor was treated for smoke inhalation and then released. Susan was not very seriously injured. The police were at complete loss as to who would want to harm the family. The family was not involved in drugs or illegal activity. They also didn't appear to have any enemies. A man who lived across the street from the family was involved in the sale of illegal weapons. He thought that the bomb was probably meant for him. But no arrests were made in the case, and it wasn't long before the case went cold. 10 years went by, then, in April 1985, a bomb exploded in the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. In response to the bombing, in 1996, the U.S. Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, also known as the ATF, began investigating all unsolved bombings in the United States. Eventually, they got to the Blount Bombing. In June 1997, a man named Charles Ferris was in the county jail in Weatherford, Texas. He told the authorities that a 33-year-old man named Michael Toney had confessed to him that he was the bomber. Ferris and Michael were in jail together. Michael was awaiting a hearing on a burglary charge. The police talked to Michael, and he denied having anything to do with the bombing. He said he had only recently heard about it from another inmate who the ATF had questioned. Michael said that on Thanksgiving 1985, he was at the home of his former best friend, Chris Meeks. He stayed there most of the evening, and then he went to his girlfriend Kim's apartment. In March 1986, he married Kim. Around the same time, he lost contact with Meeks. Michael and Kim got divorced 3 years later in 1989. Michael said that he never met the Blount family and he had no reason to harm them. The ATF interviewed Michael's ex-wife, Kim Toney. She told them that they were crazy to think that Michael could kill anyone. They also interviewed Christopher Meeks, and he said he knew nothing about the bombing. But then, a few weeks after being interviewed, Kim called the ATF. She had gone to a local library and read about the bombing. She said that Michael used to take her fishing a few miles from the site of the bombing. Kim said that on Thanksgiving 1985, she went fishing with Michael and Chris Meeks. They parked near a propane tank, and then Michael walked off with a briefcase. He returned a short time later, and he didn't have the briefcase. The ATF talked to Christopher Meeks, and he corroborated Kim's story. In December 1997, Michael Toney was indicted for the murders. The man who initially said he was behind the bombing, Charles Ferris, recanted what he said. He said the only reason he told the authorities that Michael had confessed was to get himself out of jail. Nevertheless, Michael Tony went to trial in May 1999. There was no physical evidence against him. The only evidence against him was the testimony of his ex-wife, Kim Tony, and his former friend, Chris Meeks. The trial lasted 2 weeks, and the jury deliberated for 4 hours. 33-year-old Michael Tony was found guilty. He was then sentenced to death. Michael's lawyers appealed, and their initial appeal was denied. They appealed again, and in December 2008, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals overturned his conviction. It turned out that the district attorney did not hand over 14 documents that contained important information that contradicted the testimony of the 2 star witnesses. On September 2, 2009, after serving 14 years in prison, Michael Tony was released. Michael always maintained he was innocent. He said that while he was in prison, he received several letters from people who told him the bomber's identity and why the bomb was planted. However, he never made that information public. Tragically, on October 3, 2009, a month after Michael was released, he was involved in a motor vehicle accident. The truck he was driving veered off the road and he was thrown from it. He did not survive the accident. He was 43 years old. No one else has been arrested for the Thanksgiving bombing at the Blount's trailer. It's been 36 years since Joe Blount, his daughter Angela, and his nephew Robert Columbus were killed. Their friends and family hold out hope that the case will still be solved. Thank you so much for watching today's video. And now, here's a clip from our latest video, 3 people who predicted their own deaths, from our new channel, Paranormally Listed. When Kathy was in the 7th grade, a good friend of hers died of heart disease, and she was devastated by the loss. Kathy's mother, Vivian, moved them to Las Vegas, Nevada to give Kathy a better environment to grow up. Kathy made new friends in her new city, and she blossomed. But she had long been plagued by the premonition of her own death. As a kid, Kathy told her family that she was going to die at an early age. When Kathy was 8 years old, her premonitions got more specific, and she told people that she wouldn't live past the age of 16. As her 16th birthday approached, Kathy was stressed out because the feelings that she was going to die became stronger. One day she was crying, and she told her mom that she didn't want to get older. Her mother said, "Kathy, we all have to grow up. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but we all do it." Kathy responded by saying, "I'm not going to." You can find a link to Paranormally Listed on the top left hand of the screen. You can also find a link in the description below this video. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.